Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to Binford Chronicles. Listen, this Thursday, I won't be podcasting. That's why I'm doing it today. I'll be at Filthy's attending the Conspiracy Club 101 podcast. It's hosted by John Karapi of TGI Now podcast. And of course, my partner at IRC Media. I have the best partners. That would be John Karapi with TGI Now. Mike Bollock with To the Point podcast, and of course, me. Yay. So look us up on ircmedia.net. Listen, head to Filthy's this Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. with your favorite conspiracies. We got so many of them to talk about now. Don't waste your time. Come to Filthy's and go on live. Bring 20 bucks with you because we have our first merch to sell. That's the conspiracy t-shirts. They'll be available for purchase. Now, today, joining me is Mike Dilks. He's a retired SWAT narcotics officer. Mike is the mastermind behind Copville. Local news on your law enforcement. Look, I'm looking forward to this interview. So stick around after this break. I put a little compilation together to remind you guys of what our beautiful men and women in law enforcement do. So here it is.
Sheriff's Office K9, come on now, send the dog, he will bite you.
Have your seatbelt. Come on. Pull your legs. Pull your legs. Keep forward. Yeah, I got you. Get him back. Come on. Right back.
Hey guys, welcome back. We've got Mike Dilks with us today. Whoops, wrong scene. Hold on, Mike. Group. Here it is. Yeah, there we go. There we go. I switched my scenes around. I hate when I do that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on, Mike. I really wanted to get to know you because everybody's been talking about you, and I found out you are from up north too, and so am I. So
I
tell
am
me
from
your yeah, so tell me your story because our childhood is way different than people that grew up in the South.
yeah. I was born in Suffolk County, New York. I'll be 50 this year. So I was born in Suffolk County and then immediately moved to South Jersey. So I consider myself a Jersey guy, although I favor the New York team. So yeah, I grew up in a totally different atmosphere and it was much of a culture shock. I moved here in 1993 and at 17, and I didn't understand what planet I had walked into when I saw Vero Beach, Florida. It was a different world.
Yeah, it's a lot flatter, it's spread out, a lot more grass.
Yep. I didn't know what country music was. I had no idea. I'd never heard a country song in my life until I moved here. I didn't know that there were preppy kids and rednecks and black kids didn't like they were all different. Up north, we just all kinda hung out together. We were all one group of people,
Yeah.
and I moved here, and there was all these different groups of people in the high school, and I'm like, "What's going on here?" Like, "What it's different." So it was much of the culture shock coming from up north to down here in the '90s.
Yeah, it was for me too. I came from New York, and there was a bar that I applied for to be a cocktail waitress, and I didn't know it was an all black bar. It was out in Daytona because that's where I first moved, and I was interviewing, and the manager was black, and he goes, "You know what kind of bar this is?" And I'm like, "Oh, please don't tell me it's one of those nasty bars. I don't want to work there." And he goes, "No, it's upper class black people." And I said, "Oh, well, what's up with that?"
Yeah, I didn't understand it either because we were up north. It was no everybody just got together and we all did our thing. It was no separation, and there was still some separated groups of kids when I moved here, and it was very strange.
Yeah, there was after I started working here, I actually started working for the school district when I moved to Vero in 2004. And that's when I actually met some old Floridians from way back in the 60s. And they were telling me the stories of how different it was here in the 60s. And I'm like, man, I did not have any experience like that growing
I didn't
up
either.
north.
I didn't either.
Not at all. I couldn't understand it. I was like, man, you guys are like set back in your days, like
Yeah, I think it's caught up. Vero has caught up, but it caught up fast because when I moved here still, like I said, I was 10 years ahead of you. It was a different world, and it was a culture shock for sure.
Yeah, so tell me, what was your life? So you were in where in Suffolk County were
I have
you?
no idea. I was born in Suffolk County Hospital. I know my mom was from Hackensack, and my dad was from Somers Point, New Jersey, and I don't remember how they met, somewhere to do with the boardwalk, the shore, something like that, so they ended up my mom was only 16, when she got pregnant with me and 17 when she had me. So, I, they quickly moved, to where my dad's parents lived down in, Somers Point, New Jersey, which was right outside of Ocean City, New Jersey, which anybody who's watched the Jersey Shore, they see, like, what all that was. That was all wild and crazy. Ocean City was like the Jersey Shore show, but no alcohol. It was great. There was a boardwalk, there were rides. It was the coolest place on earth to grow up. I really enjoyed my childhood up there, and it was just an amazing place to grow up.
You know what we used to do? Just when I turned 18, that's when they changed the age to 21.
Mhm.
And I was so pissed. But we used to drive from New York, from like Queens, New York to New Jersey, and we would go shopping all day long because there was no tax in New Jersey.
Mhm.
And then after we got all our stuff, we'd throw it in the trunk and then we'd go party at, is it, we'd drive out to Bergen Beach.
Uh-huh.
Am I remembering it right?
Yeah.
Bergen Beach?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we would go hang out there, and I remember sneaking into the bars at 18, and getting caught, and they just didn't do anything. They just were
No,
like,
nobody cared about
"Leave."
yeah, just get out. Different times. Everything's a crime now, and back then it was just like, "Go ahead, kids, get out of here."
So different now too, because even school, like when we were growing up in this city, our playground was the schoolyard or the football field, the bleachers. We would always go, and the girls would show up, and the guys would just bring the kegs. The guys brought
Mhm.
everything. The girls just showed up to look pretty and flirt, right? So the guys would hide the kegs under the bleachers in different places. And I remember one summer, the cops came out and they were looking at the girls and they're like, "You better go home or we're calling your parents. You go, go." So all of us girls split and the guys are still there. So the guys that had the cars, they had to call their parents and give them their keys. And then the cops took all the kegs. And we used to always say, "Oh man, those cops, they're
Yeah,
partying with."
they went and had it yeah, they went and drank it.
We never got like arrested or really in trouble. It was like a slap on the wrist, go home, like, you know,
Yeah,
go be safe.
simpler times, simpler times.
Yeah, but I grew up in New York City, so I was a Astoria, Queens girl, and I
Okay.
had family in, uh, Port Jefferson,
Mhm.
Nassau County, mostly Old Westbury, Deer Park, and, what's the other one I'm thinking of? Deer Park, Old Westbury, and Brooksville.
Yeah, I'm very familiar I'm a Mets fan, so Queens is my heart is in Queens. I'm a Mets
Oh,
fan,
I'm
and
a Mets fan
I am
too.
a diehard Mets fan. I'm backwards, though, I like the Mets and the Giants instead of the Mets and the
Oh,
Jets.
no, I like the Mets and the Jets.
And then my son went to college for 2 years in, Manhattan, so I spent, for 2 years he was up in, AMDA, Drama Academy up there, so I went back and forth a lot, so I was in New York City all the time. Great place to visit, I would never wanna live there, but last time I was there, we flew into, LaGuardia, went to the Mets opening day stadium this past year, went to the Mets opening game, and then I spent some time in Jersey City. So I love the city, love to visit, but you can keep it. I'll visit only.
Yeah, it was, I'm glad my kids grew up here, but we just were different people
Yeah,
than the
back
kids
then. Yeah,
here.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so growing up in the city was cool back then. I wouldn't want my kids growing up in the city now.
No, for sure,
You know,
for
because
sure.
I think as kids, we had a conscience in New York City, and the kids today, I think they don't have a conscience,
No,
you
wow.
know? It's hard to rein them in. You could rein us in, but
Yeah,
it's harder
so
to
we
rein
still
them in
listened. We still listened. Our parents beat us. We listened.
today. Yeah. Yeah. Wasn't that funny when you moved down here, they have paddles for the kids?
Mhm.
Like, up I don't know about you, but my dad would take his belt off. There's no paddle, it was
Yeah.
a belt.
My mom was the discipline in my house. My dad was soft. My mom beat the snot out of me, so whatever she could get her she's Italian and Greek, so whatever she could get her hands on, hockey stick, belt, stick, spoon, it didn't matter.
So, Mike, did you know from a young age that you wanted to be in law enforcement?
Nope. Never, never, never. Never dreamed of it, never thought about it. I grew up in so when I moved to South Jersey, I was way outside of, 20, 25 minutes from like Atlantic City. So, but I was like sticks. There was cornfields. The only cool thing about where I grew up was there's a campground across the street, which was seasonal. So every summer, all these people came down from New York and Pennsylvania. But I didn't, never dreamed of it. Never dreamed of it. Never thought about it. My way to law enforcement started. It's a funny story. I played softball with Jim Gabbard, who was the chief of police when I moved here. And I had no idea that he was the chief of police. My mom got me on the team because my mom was the reason we moved. She was in the medical field, and there was a bunch of doctors she worked with, Dr. Friedenstab, old school names, a couple other ones, and I ended up on this softball team at 18 years old. I'm not gonna lie, I smoked a little weed back then. I didn't. I wasn't a bad kid, but I drank a little bit. So I used to smoke weed before the games. And one day somebody says to me, they said, "How do you like playing softball with the chief of police?" And I'm like, "The chief of police?" I'm like, "Who is that?" And he's like, "The dude Jim on your team is the chief of the police department." I'm like, "He's what?" Like I had no idea that I was playing with. I was just a kid. So I straightened up immediately. I'm like, "Well, I'm not gonna do that anymore around him." And played like 2 seasons with him, and he started to take a liking to me. And he's like, "Hey man," he's like, "I think you would, you're a good kid. You don't get in trouble." He's like, "I think you'd make a good cop." But I had nothing. I had a GED. I dropped out of high school and I had no college or nothing. And he said, "Why don't you join the army?" He said, "You give me a couple years in the army and come back and I'll hire you." And that's how it all unfolded. I joined the United States Army. He kept his word. I did 3 years of airborne infantry. I was stationed in Fort Polk, Louisiana for 3 years from 96 to 99. And the day I got out, he hired me.
Wow, that's great. So he was like a really good mentor,
Yeah, he
you
was.
looked up to him.
Yeah, he was like my dad. My dad and I weren't very close growing up, and my dad passed away young at 54 back in 2011. But he was around. But like I didn't have that guy. My dad was more of a drinker and kind of a partier, and I was more of a sports guy. So he's like like very good influence on my life at that point. The only reason I'm a cop, honestly, is Jim Gabbard. That was how it all turned, and he hired me. I started in dispatch. I did a year waiting to go to the police academy, and then went through, and here we are.
Wow, that's amazing. There's always somebody that touches our lives. I know I can mention a few people that touched my life when I was growing up. So are you really close with your mom then?
Yeah, my dad passed away in 2011, and my mom knew one man. She obviously got pregnant at 16, and she's only been with my dad. And when my dad passed away, it kind of went into that she had never been with another human, and that was her only person. So I maintain a very close relationship with my mom, and have to keep an eye on her and keep after her. And we're very close in age, obviously. So as we get older, when you're younger, you don't realize you're so close in age with your mother when you're only 16 years apart. She seems like the mean old mom. But now that
Mhm.
she's, I'm 50 and she's, 66, it's 67. It's a lot like, whoa, we're not really that far apart. So yeah, we're very close. I talk to her every day. She lives just a mile down the road, and so that
You
maintained, and it got closer as my dad passed away. Obviously, she needed somebody in her life to help her, so that became me.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, I mean, but you're right. As we get older, our kids start to be closer to us. Well, I've got 30 years between me and my daughter, but even now she's 28 and she's just like a little woman.
Oh yeah.
It's they start to get closer to your own level of adulthood.
Well, we're so intertwined now with, my dad growing up. I played sports and I listened to a certain kind of music. My dad was like Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne, stuff I didn't like, I didn't listen to. It was a different world, and we just seemed so far apart. We spent, I'm sure you did. You went outside all day, you came home, you went outside all day, you came home, you didn't really hang out with your parents. Now we hang out
Mhm.
with them. It's like, I have 4, and, they're, 27, 26, 22, and 21, and, close together, but now we all just they're like friends. It's that separation of parents and kids is more like they're just kind of acquaintances now, where our parents and us were so different in my world, like, we were just totally different people.
Yeah, well, we gotta play that role for a little while, till they grow up and figure it out,
Mhm.
because if we don't, then we're just best friends and they won't respect us as they get
Yeah,
older, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
I mean, it was hard for me. I remember I got divorced and in 2011 I got divorced 2009, and it was 2011 when I had my daughter all to myself, and I was just like trying to raise her, and it's a tough time to do that as a mom. So I know
We
your
share that
mom.
we share that date. I got divorced the first time in 2009 as well.
Yeah, and it was just really hard because I had to be firm sometimes, and you
Mhm.
you I think every parent has said it, "I don't care what any other parent says.
No, we're all
I don't care what their kid does, you're my kid. That's what I care about," you know? And you just gotta be tough, but, it paid off because she's an
Mhm.
amazing young lady now, and she's not doing drugs, and she's got a pretty good head on her,
Yeah,
you know?
I'm happy all 4 of mine are in the same boat. They don't, and actually, to spin it a little bit, my oldest daughter is a deputy as well. She's a corrections deputy in the jail.
Oh,
So
really?
nobody in our family were police, and I was the first one, and now I have my daughter who also works at the sheriff's office.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So listen, you worked at the police station and the sheriff's.
Yeah, I started at the sheriff's office or police department and transitioned to the sheriff's office.
So when did you transition to the sheriff's office? When
So
did
I
that
I
happen?
I started in '99 at the police department. Like I said, the first year I went to, dispatch, and I went to police academy, and then I started in '01 on the patrol, and I left right after the hurricanes in '04, December of '04. That was the year that Gabbard ran against, Roy Raymond. Gabbard actually ran for sheriff, that year, but I kind of just outgrew, and I'm not knocking the police department. It's a different world, 2 different places. I felt like my brain and my ADD and my level of wanting to do a lot of crazy things, I felt like kind of outgrew, like, the little police department. They were more of like a respond to EMS calls and, there's no crime here. We're just here to happy, and we have a nice little Vero Beach. And I used to kinda sit on the outskirts and listen to all the deputies chasing people and biting people with the dogs, and I'm like, I wanna do that. I wanna
I
go
want
do
some
that.
action.
Yeah, and, it just was I got in a couple car chases with Vero, and they were very strict and very black and white. There was no gray area, and I was like, "It's just not g" I've always operated in that gray area, throughout my life, and I'm like, "I just can't deal with this micromanaged, constant somebody
Mm.
over your shoulder. You have to ask to go to the bathroom. You have to ask to cross the railroad tracks. You have to ask to go to the station." So I started listening, and there was a train of guys that left. It was like, Milo Thornton was one real good friend of mine. He was one of the first that left and kinda went to the sheriff's office, and kind of a train of guys went, and so I left in, December of '04. I started at the sheriff's office.
Damn, I moved here January of '04, right?
Yep.
And
I
then 6 months later, the hurricanes hit
Yeah,
us.
yeah, so I dealt with the hurricanes at Vero, both of them. I remember sleeping at the station. It was miserable. I remember Albertsons was there, and Albertsons got destroyed. I remember going to, like, break in. They gave us permission to get everything that was perishable to kinda take back to the station, and then right when all that cleared up and, I was already in the hiring process with the sheriff's office, and they called, and I left, and went over there.
Wow, so was it everything you expected it to be?
Yes. Yeah. I know I come off and somebody I did a kind of episode last week's episode was kind of about this that I did, I got raw dealed at the end, pretty bad, but and sometimes I let that overshadow how much I loved working there for a period of time until the current sheriff took over. Um, but yes, I was everything I wanted it to be. I did everything I wanted to do in my career. I loved it. I loved being a deputy. I loved working. I loved investigations and narcotic. Everything I did, I loved it. And sometimes I guess I kind of put a cloud over that, or I make people not understand how much I did love being a cop and how much I loved the sheriff's office. So sometimes that gets mixed up. But yeah, it was everything I wanted it to be and more.
Well, that's nice. That's pretty nice, but, so what was your favorite thing that you did when you were in the sheriff's office? If you could go back, where would you wanna be?
Honestly, and it sounds crazy because everybody wants, and I did all the cool stuff. I did SWAT, I did narcotics, I did, warrants task force, DA. I will tell you the most fun I ever had, and I touched on this last week as well. Road patrol in Gifford. I loved the atmosphere. I loved the people. I made so many connections in Gifford. I talked to a girl last night that I've known my whole career. I saw her daughter. Her daughter works at Toyota dealership, and I took my car in. Just you always think you want to do the cool things like detective, and you want to be a narcotics, and you want to be you want to be promoted. You want to do all these other things within the sheriff's, like canine. You just want to. I want to go do. I want to do this. I want to do this. But every time I came back to patrol after like a detective assignment or a specialty unit assignment, and I came back and I went back to just regular calls for service, that is the most important job in the world, in my opinion. The most important job is as a road patrol officer, but it was the most fun. You don't realize and don't respect it until you get older and you look back and go, man, those were the times. You're just grinding 1 a.m. with your buddies and you're going to calls and you're helping people and there's crashes and you're pulling something like your video, you're pulling people out of cars or you're finding guys that are bad. It's just that basic, and that sounds basic, but it's not. It's the most important job. Road patrol. Road patrol work in Gifford, Florida was my favorite times of my career.
Well, you can make such an impact when you're there with the people and the
Yep.
kids too,
Yep.
whereas some people tell their kids to be afraid of the cops. They're like, the cops are bad people. But
Mhm.
when you actually get to interact with them, like I love seeing those Facebook videos where the cops come by and they're playing basketball with the
Mhm.
boys,
Yep.
or they bring a kid, they do their sirens for the kid, or they stop by and just
Yep.
communicate with the family. It's pretty awesome because that's kinda the cop that I remember growing up with, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, to me, that's how I grew up knowing police officers, like, they
Yeah.
weren't at like, they knew we were stupid kids,
Mhm.
but they would sit there and they would talk with us and they'd, say, "Okay, move on," you know? We weren't considered bad kids, and we didn't look at them like we were afraid of them. We almost looked at them like, "Oh, man, we better get our shit together." You know?
Yeah, and Gifford was a unique place to work. You usually started out there as a new cop. They always sent you to Gifford, and by nature, there's just it was there was a lot. There was drugs. There was people buying drugs when I started back in '04. It was before the cell phone. There was just it is what it is. I tell it like it is. There was a lot of narcotic sales going on in there, a lot of things going on with people, but it kept the action. But throughout that, that's what you there. It's just I made so many connections. I watched kids grow up. I remember, kids that I used to take pictures with, and they were, 15 years ago, and now they're grown up, and I see them everywhere. And it's just because of the culture difference. Because you go work the South County area, the Highlands, and other places,
Mhm.
it's not the same culture because the houses are a little more spread apart. They're not everybody in Gifford was outside. There's parks. There was, Gifford Park and the parade, the MLK parade. There was just the way that everybody was always kind of outside, and you just had. It was more like even though it's not a city, it was more city-ish, like New York, where you had a beat where you just got out and walked around, and you talked to people, and you ran into people, and you made more contact. You go in the Highlands and walk down the street, you're not gonna see anybody. You're not gonna talk to anybody. You're not gonna go to Oslo Park. You're not gonna see anybody. You're not anywhere else. It's one of a kind place. It kind of gave you that city feel. And I built the best friendships, relationships, and community. And yeah, I took a lot of people to jail and I got in a lot of fights and I got in a lot of crazy incidents, but I also met some of the people like after it all shook out, I have more friends and talked to more people from Gifford than I do anywhere else in this county.
Would you ever do an SRO job?
I did it periodically throughout my career, and it's a very, very it's a very important job, and I make fun of SROs. I do in my page and my memes. I do, and but I worked SRO here and there I remember when the shooting happened down in Stoneman Douglas. Um, then the governor passed a law that all schools had to have school resource officers. Obviously, that was a huge burden for agencies because manpower. You're like, oh my god, we
Mhm.
have all these schools and we have no cops. So there were, I was a detective when that happened. So they were like, "Hey, we're gonna have to fill these schools. We have to." So they were doing like 2-week stints. Like, you're a detective, but for 2 weeks you're gonna work here. And I ended up, of all places, like I said, it just by what I liked, I ended up at St. Peter's Academy in Gifford on 38th Avenue there, the private school. And I loved it. 2 weeks, St. Peter's Academy, interacting with the kids, walking around. Now, it's a tough job to do all the time. I don't know that I could have done it for years, but I did it. And then throughout the time when there was shortages and overtime, and they would post it as overtime, I'd work at. I remember working at Citrus. I remember working at Vero Beach Elementary, the high school a little bit. I prefer younger kids. I like kids that are un changed by the world and have that innocent mind still that you can kind of talk to,
Mhm.
and they haven't been forced to make a decision about cops or whatever happens, high school kids. But I loved it. Full time, no, I couldn't, but I really respect the job, and I think it's a very important job.
Yeah, I think my favorite age for children is between 4 and 7, because they're like sponges, and they're so proud when they learn stuff, you know?
Yeah.
When I worked at, the school district, I loved that age group. That was my favorite age group. And then, the next favorite age group were the kids that were like, freshman kids, because they were like so at that awkward stage. They just didn't know where they were heading, and they just kind of needed to hear something from an adult,
Yeah.
like they would sit there and you can talk to them and bestow a little bit of your wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's
And
good.
they listen.
Yeah, it's good to have an opportunity because 'cause you're right, they don't wanna listen to mom and dad, they see them every day, they know mom's mean, dad's mean, and you got, like, if you have good intentions, you can help mold a child that's in that
Mhm.
"where am I at, where am I going" phase, and that's why I think school resources very important, very serious, excuse me, not only for that, but that's the worst call that we're ever gonna hear when it goes across the TV or across the radio is any type of mass casualty or incident at school because the most prized possession in this world are our children and, young
Mm,
children, and
yeah.
we have to protect their minds and their spirits, and we have to protect them, so it's very, very important job.
So, Mike, I kind of want to pivot over because, for years now, I supported our sheriff, Eric Flowers, and my partner and good friend, John Carapi, has been trying to, take the fold off my eyes and say, look, I've lived here all my life. I know this, I know that, I know this. And he kind of turned me on to you. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm going to listen to this guy. And I'm like,
Well, I don't wanna
wow.
bully you to make you change your mind. I can only tell you if we're gonna talk about that, and I'll let you ask questions or you guide the conversation. I will tell you, I worked with Eric Flowers from 2006. We went into narcotics together. We spent the next 6 years together. We went on cruises. We went on trips. We were partners. We spent almost more times with each other than we did our families. And later on in life, I was his best man and he was my best man. So we were very close at one point, and now we haven't spoken in years.
How
So,
does that happen?
um, I attribute this to how do I say this nicely? Because you're a nice lady and you have a nice show. I would say it much differently in my own show, in my own world. I'll put it politically correct. I believe, when he took over office in 2021, his intentions were 100% great, and I think his intentions were always great. I don't think he was a bad person at the time, and, I don't know that he's a bad person. I think he just became
Do you think he
not
just got
his heart,
politicized?
yes, his heart and his mission. He stood on I'll break it down. He stood on a baseball field in that when he took over, and he told everybody on that field, "You will be fired if you have an affair on your wife. If you do
Mhm.
anything." He made these statements. Now,
And he ran on that. He
he ran
ran
on God,
on
principle,
loyalty,
and loyal yes,
family.
yes. So, we all make mistakes though, right? We're humans.
Yes, we
To
do.
break it down in perspective though, when he made the mistake and he broke the trust and he never really owned it, and that's where I think it started to politicize is there was a moment when he could have broken down and just said, "I blew it." Like, I blew it, I did all these things, and I own it. And he kind of apologized, and under 20 days from the apology, he was back having the affair again and got caught again. So it kind of nullified the, apology, but during that time it's tough to stand in front of a camera, and I've done it. I've been investigated by the FBI and DEA. I failed a steroid test at the sheriff's office, and I was probably gonna be fired. I've done some things. I was on TikTok. I got all over the world in news and TikTok. I danced around for 4 months going through a crisis, but when I got done with those, I've stood here and said, "These are the mistakes I've made. You need to know that about me before you listen to me, judge me. You may hate me, you may not, but I'm not going to let anything be an aha moment like, look, this guy pretended he was somebody he wasn't, and look at his background." I
So
will
you
tell you that
own it.
you have to. And there's some things you can't own. There's some crimes and there's some things that you do in your life that anything with a child, anything, you can't undo that. There's
Oh, no.
no answer for those things. But there
Mhm.
are things when you go, "Hey, I made a mistake and I own it." He never owned it, and that's where he started to buffer himself with people that I think he got taken advantage of by people who saw weak man, weak times, and it was hard to go, "I screwed up and I need to address this." And people started telling him, we were telling him, "Bro, you screwed up." Like, I was telling him right to his face. There were some other guys that we all got chopped, all of us. There was a whole group of us, Lonnie,
He
Rich.
doesn't like hearing the
He
truth
didn't
that
want no,
he
he didn't
screwed
wanna hear
up.
the yeah, he didn't wanna address it, and he started to buffer, and those people around him that are weak, nasty humans that are his administration now, they saw an opportunity to go, "We can get rid of Dilks, we can get rid of Lonnie, we can get rid of this guy, and we can tell
Mhm.
him, 'We have your back, man. Those guys are telling you you're all screwed up,'" because he was. And that's where it kinda shifted, for me was, I gotta look at my wife, and I gotta go, "This dude had an affair. He's my best friend," but, wives aren't really fond of best friends who have affairs, right?
Mm-mm.
They're not
We're not fond of
and
cheaters.
it's also her boss, she works there. So
Yeah.
it's like a weird scenario, but that wasn't the only thing. I just saw him start to make decisions and change his standards, and he started promoting people that shouldn't be promoted. That's my opinion. It's his building. He can run how he wants, but I'm not gonna sit around and watch the ship go down. So that kind of started it, and then there was the IA I got into where I believe I was targeted and over disciplined because I'd started to support Milo Thornton, and guys knew that there was things going on, and
Well,
uh,
that's crazy too because Milo and him went back as well,
we were
you
all buddies.
know?
I mean, if you go back and look at the campaign pictures from that first win, you can see him hugging me and Milo on the news. We
Hey,
were
I went to
all tight.
his first win. I went to his campaign at that big farm that they had out
Yeah,
there,
I was there. I was there.
and Milo was there, and I knew
Yeah,
Milo from the school district because he was always on campus. He was a detective. He was an SRO, I wanna say, because he was also
he was, in charge of the SROs.
in charge of the SROs, and I always liked Milo because I was like, "Man, he's such a great mentor for the Black kids because when he's talking to the Black kids, he doesn't become ghetto.
No.
Still talks like he always talks, like he's for real. You know what I mean?
And Milo and I go back just as far. Milo used to sleep on my couch when I moved here. Like, we were friends, and Milo and my first wife, the children, mother of all my children, went to school and graduated together. So Milo and I I've known Milo longer than Eric. And then it got to, I got asked to I've talked about this. I got asked to try to get Milo fired. Like, they were going after him, and I got called. The sheriff of Indiana County, Eric Flowers, told me, quote, "I need you to find something on this guy so I can fire him." This was after they put him through that 3-month internal affairs investigation that came with nothing, demoted him,
They
and I
put
got
him
put
at the
in.
jail. They put him at the,
Well, they took him out of the jail and put him at the, that's when he went to school resource as the captain. They demoted him out of the jail and moved him to school resource. The reason they did that was they wanted him as far away from the building as possible. They didn't want to see him because they knew he was running. It was a whole disaster. It was bad, but the basic for you, and I'm not trying to change your mind about Eric, and if you like him, you like him, that's fine. But he just, to me, became, and here's a great
but
analogy
I
to somebody.
agree with you. He has changed
Yeah,
since
he's changed. He's a
like the
politician.
first time I met him and I used to know him and I used to talk with him and then Michael Marsh started getting in the
Uh-huh.
picture
My
and
buddy.
I was running a campaign for someone that I was supporting for Senate and I remember I was across the street from Milo. Milo helped me set up my tent and everything. And then here comes that Marsh guy with
Mhm.
his posse, and he's like, "Can I get under your tent with all" he had like 8 people with him. I'm like, "No, my no." And he's like, "Why?" And I says, "Because you really have a bad reputation and I'm trying to campaign for somebody." And they started cussing, curse words, and I called because I used to have Eric's cell phone number. So I texted him and I FaceTimed him and I said, "You need to get this guy under control. He's no good for your campaign. Get him a tent. Get him away from my tent
Yeah.
and get him a tent."
He's
Uh,
he's also interestingly enough, a convicted felon,
yeah, he is.
and
And
he hangs out with the sheriff, and he's his buddy now. Marsh has a key to the building. He can walk around that place anytime he wants.
yeah, so I can't even get a hold of Eric Flowers anymore,
Yeah,
but
no.
he used to be so accessible and he
He
really isn't
changed, yeah,
anymore.
he let it's multi-layered. He's his I keep talking about people's family, but the woman he had the affair with and the one he's with now, the mistress turned wife, he's out of his league. I hate to say it, but he is. He's out of his league. His status got him into this with her, and he has to now keep up with something. He's not that guy. I know Eric Flowers. It's funny. I'm gonna say something. It's funny.
Are you because she's high maintenance?
Well, I'm not gonna. I worked with her father too. Her father was a police officer at the police department. I try not to talk. I say a lot of things now, and I try to back down. But I will say this: I
Well,
hung
she's
out
a
with Eric Flowers.
beautiful young lady, and a
I
lot of
know who
young ladies are high maintenance, so
I know who Eric Flowers is. I know what he's about. That's not his type of person. When looks and maybe what's the word I want to say? The sex when sexual tension, all those things come around that maybe you hadn't had before, or it's different, or it's changed.
his libido
People
is
do
alive now.
people do yeah, people just do things, and here's another fun fact, and he met
Well,
he met his first wife, Rachel, at my house. Eric did. So I'm close with her, like, I was close with both of them, so I was in a very ugly situation when all
yeah,
that happened.
did you have to pick your friend?
No, I did no, I didn't at first, but I let the people pick me. She's a very nice woman. She's never done anything wrong to me. I still very cordial with her, very friendly with her, and look what he did. So it's like, I didn't pick, but he, he put me in a bad situation where it's like, I didn't know he was having an affair. I didn't know until he got caught. I wasn't in that circle of people that I guess some people knew. We were close, but I didn't know, and I wouldn't have wanted to know because I would have told me he was a moron. But when he got caught and it all unfolded, I got in that situation. I got her calling me, "Did you know?" And I'm like, "No, Rachel, I didn't know." And, it was
Yeah,
ugly. He changed. He changed who he was, and I had
it
to
was
make a decision. Do I sell my soul? I could have the guy that I always joke, the little bodyguard that follows him around Cliff, his little sidekick, that could have been me. If I would have sold out and been like, "Yes, boss, I'm with you, boss. Like, I don't care. I'll sell out." I could be
yeah, but
making
you're not a cheater.
no, I could have been making 160 grand and hanging out with him, and
And, it's your best friends that are willing to sacrifice their friend getting mad at them for the truth. Your best friend should be able to tell you the truth. And if they can't do that, then they're just followers. They're
I can
not
show
good
you the
friends.
and I have it. I can show you the text message timeline of how it went down, and the final day, after even demoted me, we went 9 months, I think, without talking because he screwed me. He let me get railroaded in that investigation, and my wife.
He broke up with you.
Yeah, so I 9 months, and I finally met him in his office, and we had it out. We had a 3-hour meeting in his office, and I said when I walked in, I was like, "This is Mike Dilks and Eric, or I'm leaving because 'cause I'm gonna get fired if it's Deputy Dilks and Sheriff Flowers," and he said, "No, it's me and you," and we went at it. And when we left there, this is how I knew he wasn't my friend anymore. He treated me like another side chick. He said to me, "Everybody around me, all his little minions, Stephanie Diakwar, his secretary or the customer service, Tom Rolland, the undersheriff, clown, crook, to Kyle King." He said to me, like a side chick, "Hey, none of them can know I'm talking to you." And I'm
What?
laughing. I remember, well, yeah, I'm like a side chick. Like I'm the broken toy. I can't talk to him. So he basically told me when I walked out that day, after screaming and yelling and all that. So for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, we started.
Mhm.
It was weird. I was like kind of talking. He's kind of trying to get back because I was the guy he would always say, "What's going on? What's the climate? What's going on? What's the guy saying?" So we started to kind of talk, and he was kind of getting back into asking me those questions. And then he made a round of promotions, and I watched him promote all the yes men. and I saw it happen, and that was the last day I've ever talked to him, ever.
Wow.
I
So
just couldn't deal with it.
So let's pivot here. Since you've been so involved in law enforcement, what do you think about this whole budget thing that he was fighting against the county commission? I've, I know that the jail has taken on some duties and stuff, and I want my law enforcement to have everything they need. But the budget that he was asking for it, was it really, do you think, in your opinion, it was really out of scale, or was it really something he needed? And you know a lot of officers that still work there. So did he really help his officers? Was he taking care of
No,
them?
no, he wasn't, and I'll tell you a funny story. I actually ended up some lady called me one day and says, "I have a copy of the sheriff's budget from 2022 on a zip drive," and I'm like, "What?" And this is when I'm doing all this reporting. Somehow, I have it in here somewhere, I think. Yeah, here it is. Lady brings me an Axon. Axon is the body cam and taser company, and she brings me this, and she says somehow it ended up in a uh, like a Goodwill in Fort Pierce. So I'm able to see the numbers of an old budget. Here's what happened. The affair, and I'm going to go right back to it. He got caught up in that lifestyle of the sheriff, the affair, and he gave up on the agency. He wasn't running the place. There were weeks and months he was gone. He
So who
turned
was
it over.
running it?
Lonnie Rich was running it before they shit canned him. And Lonnie Rich, Roland was around, but he was gone. He was absent, and he was out of control. And he let the salaries fall behind. I shit on the sheriff's office. I'm this and that. I do talk a lot of junk. I believe they deserve to be paid. They need to train. They need to be ready to go to battle. They need to be well-rounded. They need to know their case law. They need to be able to fight. I agree with that. They also deserve to be well paid. I'm not against them being well paid, but there is a limit on where the money has to come from and how you budget. The word budget, how you budget for that. He gave up on focusing on the budget, and he let other agencies get too far ahead. And then he cries wolf and blames it on everybody else. It's his fault. A business doesn't fit. If Amazon goes under, it's Jeff Bezos' fault. If Microsoft goes under, it's Bill Gates' fault. If the country falls apart, Donald Trump's going to be blamed for it. It's his fault. You are the boss. You can't blame everybody else for your lack of budgeting. You have to hire a comptroller that's capable of putting the numbers. What he does is, and I know it because I've seen it now, he robs Peter to pay Paul. He gets behind in the budget, and then he goes into next year's budget, and he goes into next year's budget. And a little trick he pulled, I don't know if anybody noticed it, but he did it at the end. He had $1.2 million left over. He didn't
When
talk
he was
about
bringing it back,
he
didn't
didn't
he?
talk about that money, though, in the first couple budgets, right? In the first couple meetings, he didn't mention he still had money. He needed all this money. Then when that all failed, by the way, I'm going to give this back. So what he failed. He failed.
But
He
a
got
lot of times when they give that back, it goes right back into the budget because you have the
but
rollovers.
yes, he does. But he got so far behind. Think about it. When I got demoted, okay, I was a sergeant. I got demoted. I was a topped out deputy. I got demoted back to $63,000 top out for the sheriff's office before that new pay scale kicked in. He let our starting pay stay in the mid 40s throughout his first couple years, throughout his first term. He failed to budget and be ready, and he bought all this fancy stuff. And I get it. We need equipment. But you have to have well-paid people. The number one thing that people are going to want to have is money. It sucks, but that's today's world. If you're not paying them, they're going somewhere else. And that's what happened. Port St. Lucie sucked them all up. They're making so much money down there. They're Martin County. If it was a law enforcement crisis, like this Treasure Coast area, they'd all be crying budget. You don't see St. Lucie County crying budget. You don't see Martin County. Martin County, a little problem. I know West Palm is massive. They're in the billions, I think, or way up there. I get it. Those are huge, but we're small enough. 150,000, 170,000 people, 400 deputies. We shouldn't have a crisis when you have somebody who can be so hands-on and knows all this. It's not crazy agency. We're not freaking, we're not West Palm. We're not Jacksonville. We're
Well,
not.
and some of those big bells and whistles are grants too.
He doesn't write grants. He doesn't do anything with them. He doesn't have a grant writer. No.
He doesn't get grants
Nope,
for
nope,
his
nope,
any
nope,
of his stuff?
nope, nothing. There's it's such a problem. all his people around him in all those high-end civilian positions,
So, like, his cars and stuff, Mike, I mean, that stuff's expensive,
they
like,
may
it's
get
like
no,
$56,000
no,
for a car, you
no,
know?
no. You don't
With
there are
grants, you can
so
get them
many
dirt cheap.
grants. No, there's so many. I'll give you one example of where he failed with grants. He had to give back. He had to cut the, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, out of the policy. Very simple one to look at. $40,000 a year to, an academy here in Vero Beach, Master Tavares, who was one of my guests in my early podcast. Amazing six-time world, six-degree black belt, world champion jiu-jitsu. One of the most important things in law enforcement is taking people into custody. You would think you want your
Mhm.
officers the best trained. You don't want to shoot everybody. You want to tase everybody. You need to be able to go hands-on and fight. They had jujitsu in the budget. They cut it this year. It's gone. And that's a problem because there are grants that will pay for that, but nobody does it. Nobody writes them. He doesn't have anybody doing those things. And everybody around him is one of his buddies. He's too friendly. He's too worried about being the bad guy with the wrong people that civilians control. The grant writers should be nonstop every day, squeezing the federal government and those grants for every single penny. Cars, uniforms, jujitsu, fuel, all those things. No, they don't do that. They don't put pressure on those people to do their job. And I've watched it in all departments where it's unfortunate. It's his fault. It's his fault. It's not county commission's fault. And I don't say that because I don't like them, because there's county commissioners I don't like, but I don't blame them. I don't blame them. It's not their fault to go, this dude doesn't know how to fund the agency, and he's failing. So now it's our fault. And the way he went about it, and the kicking and screaming. I went to that meeting. I don't know if you saw Mike Marsh yell at me. Like, I went to one
Yeah,
of
he
his
was
meetings.
talking about you in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
hallway.
Yeah, he's yelling and screaming, but I went and I went to a co and I watched it, and you can't tax, raise taxes. They have to answer to people too, and they have to fund all the other departments within the county, and you can't just keep asking for astronomical increases, 18,000,000, 14,000,000, 18, whatever you wanted it. Come on, man. You don't see Martin County having that, huge problem. You don't see Port St. Lucie having that huge problem. You don't see St. Lucie County having that, and they're making way more money down there. St. Lucie County deputies are making Port St. Lucie cops are making like 120 grand topped out, and Martin County's
That's
making six figures topped out. They're making huge money, and they don't have the problems.
Yeah, that's with all of our, the law enforcement and the fire department. We've
I
got
feel bad for them too. I
firefighters
always
that
leave
leave.
them out. I leave them out.
You leave them
Yep.
out?
Yeah, I mean, I leave them out because I forget to talk about them. They have to be
Yeah.
paid too. They deserve to be paid. They're doing first responder work. They're putting their life on the line, and it's like, you want the sheriff to have this big increase, then the firemen will go, well, what about us? It just, if you're not doing it the right way, you're not balancing. And when I went to that meeting, what I want to point out where Marsh yelled at me is, I saw the Wizard of Oz show. Those deputies and people that went up and read those statements, they were forced to do that. There were many that were forced to do that. That wasn't
Well, he
voluntary.
did a YouTube video, and they all were standing behind him,
You clown.
and all their titles came up. You're saying that they did that because
Not them. That's command staff. There was a couple
oh,
canine. That day at that budget meeting that I went to where Marsh yelled at me, they were going up and reading, and it was like the real-time crime center, the helicopter pilots, this guy, that guy, civilians, this. I watched them pull Cliff Labe, Captain Cliff, the little minion sidekick. I watched him go into a folder and pull out the statement and hand it to the people to go read it. So if I'm, you don't even have the people from the right departments really writing their own statements. It's like, here, dude, you're going to read this. Go read it. And what are you going to say? No? Like, yeah, you're going to go do it. It's kind of like when I make fun of the cops on the videos, like when they're like the stupid social media videos I make fun of on Copville, like Sebastian's famous for it. The cops don't want to stand there and answer stupid 5 questions and be all over the internet, but they have to because these people tell them, go do it, and you feel obligated. I watched them hand those people papers to go read. So the cops and the people aren't even saying what they really want to say. They're saying what the sheriff is telling them to say, which is just what I'm telling you. That he wasn't supported. I'm telling you right now, he was overwhelmingly not supported in that last election.
yeah,
He wasn't.
in all of our, even in the school district, it's like that too. You can't talk back to the school district. You can't disagree. You can't
Nope,
bring anything up against what they
nope.
want to hear.
If you do, you'll be on a podcast. You'll be on a podcast. You won't be working
Well,
anymore.
my partner John Karapi lost his job.
Yep. I
I
lost
mean,
mine. Like, I tell you, I know I don't know if you know how my career ended, but the election was on August 20th, Tuesday. Milo lost. The following
Mhm.
Monday, I walked into a transfer to the jail. I'm not a jailer, never worked in the jail. I'm not certified to work in the jail. It was a big F you. You supported Milo. Here you go, buddy. Go to the jail. And that's how my career ended. Now, I eventually, like I said, I was called in for a test for steroids. I was taking some testosterone and stuff. And I'm not gonna lie. And but I was on FMLA. I was home, but I was done. My career was over. He ruined my
Mhm.
life. He eliminated my ability to work overtime. I would have been a junior corrections deputy, lost my seniority to work nights or midnights. Now my life is in danger as far as being in the jail with people I've arrested my whole career, completely different atmosphere. My wife is a deputy on the road, a sergeant. Now I'm in the jail nights. Our complete family life would have been screwed up. He knew what he was doing, and I laugh. I think he was like the Grinch with those little fuzzy fingers just going, like, I got this guy. He had no idea the size of my social media company and how much money I was making doing everything behind the scenes. So he didn't ruin my life. But had I have not had all this other stuff to come back to, I'd be working in the jail right now on midnight shift, sucking without seeing my family. And he would have done just out of spite.
I thought Milo was gonna win that
I did
election
too.
because his booth, everybody was stopping, like, honking. I mean, he had the most traffic. He was like the popular guy on the corner. Wherever he was, people were just so supportive. But I think what happened with Milo is he didn't reach out to his like the black people that and the minorities that were independent or Democrats and tell them, look, I'm running as Republican. You
It's
need to switch your
hard to
vote.
get that. I agree with you. It's hard to get that message across. That freaking moron that runs every year, Cooney, like that
Oh
screws
yeah,
it up.
is she gonna be our
Oh,
next sheriff?
I don't
Because
know. I'm gonna say something controversial, and, I'm gonna say it, but I think and Milo's one of my best friends. 2 things. I think he a little bit in the public speaking area, he wasn't as fluent as Keith
Mhm.
and Eric. Even Eric's a terrible public speaker. If you want me to rate him, I think Touchberry did the best at the debates with speaking, and his, ability to speak was better. I didn't like Keith's policies on some things. I would like Milo's policies. I think Milo's suffered, and I'll be honest with you, I still what we talked about at the very beginning of this episode, I still don't think this county was ready for a black sheriff. I think there were still people hung up on Milo being black, and I think some of them old white ranch grove old school people are still not ready to pencil that minority in.
I don't know. I think what really blew it for me was I was like, Milo's been there for so long. Why can't he rattle this stuff off? Like, he just was terrible at speaking,
Yeah, he
terrible
had a
up
tough
front.
time.
I
He had a
tried
tough
to get him on my podcast. He said his people told him not to get on it. And I says, Milo, don't listen to your people. Like,
Yeah, I'm
you
gonna
know,
hope at now. So Milo wasn't sure where I stood all the way, I believe, and we're very tight. Talk to him every day, almost every day. Um, I don't know. He didn't. I don't. I understand why. I don't believe he thought he could trust me all the way when he first started because I was very close with Eric for so long. As it went further, I think, and now obviously on my desk in Orlando on my big podcast, my Milo for Sheriff hat sits right in front of me on my desk. Um, I know he knows where I stand now, and we're not going to have that problem if he runs again, and I will help him.
mhm.
But yes, he should have been on podcast, and I think he got caught up. You saw he was reading a lot of things at those debates. He got caught up with he hired some firm out of Tallahassee, I believe, some political assistance people. I don't know for a fact, but I think that's what happened. And I think they pushed Milo from what you said at the beginning. The guy that can talk to the kids, the guy that stands in front of you and has a very genuine
Yeah,
conversation.
he just
If
needed to go up there
Milo
and be
Yeah,
himself.
Milo Thornton that I know that was one of the first people to hug my kid when he walked across the stage and walked off the stage for graduation. The guy that stands in front of the has the people around him and all that. If that guy got up in front of everybody and was Milo that we know, I think he probably gets enough people. But even some people that were very down the middle, my aunt being one of them, called me and she said, I'm really concerned. And she's a Democrat. And she just switched Republican to vote for Milo and then said, "Man, I'm a little concerned with his speaking and what he's saying." So
Mhm.
I think that, but I still think his color played into this old redneck town. Hopefully we have enough new voters in the last 4 years that are younger and have different thoughts about that that will push him over if he decides to run again. If he does, I will be 1,000,000% standing, jumping, and doing everything I can to help him win.
Yeah, I think you might be right partially there, but, for me, it wasn't a color thing because I
No,
never
I get
looked
it.
at
Not for I'm not
Milo.
saying you, but
You
yeah,
know,
I
I
get it.
was but I mean, there's people like me, that just saw Milo for who he was, but I was on the fence with Eric Flowers and Milo. I would never vote for Touchberry because when I've talked with him and vetted him, he was totally for red flag laws. He was not a Second Amendment conservative, and he to me, Touchberry came off like a micromanage
Oh god,
type
he
person,
was. I
and
worked for him. I worked for him.
I feared for the officers that would work under him. I literally did. Like when I looked at him and when I talked to him about certain things, just how he responded and I just was like, oh, that feels so yucky. It feels like one of those managers that micromanages you and makes you feel like shit all the
Yeah,
time,
he
you
he,
know?
um, he had
And
a
I
famous,
I have no proof of that, but
no, I can tell
women
you.
like to go by their instinct.
I can tell you. You're right. He was the captain at the police department when I got hired at the sheriff's office, and he called me in his office, and I'll never forget this statement. And I'm okay with him now. We went through a rough time. We didn't talk, and he was chief of Felsman. I ran into him, and I shook his hand, and we're cool. But he said something to me that I'll never forget, um, and it stuck with me, and it motivated me. He called me in, and I everybody knew I was leaving in like 2 weeks, and he said, "quote You're a dime a dozen cop." And I said, "What does that mean, Captain?" He says, "You have a little bit of military, a little bit of college. You don't have a degree. We wouldn't even hire you at the Vero Beach Police Department if you applied again right now." And I
That's
took that. That
ridiculous.
motivated me, and I never forgot that. I used to joke, "I'm a dime a dozen cop." I went on to have a very successful career, and I think I was maybe a quarter or a dollar, maybe a raggedy $2 bill. I think I worked my way up the chain a little bit of money, but he called me a dime a dozen, and I never forgot that. And I held it against him for a long time, and I didn't speak to him, and we didn't talk. And then the first election, we really didn't say a word when he ran in the four-way when Eric won, and then the second one. But you're right. You know what? I look at this like if he would have won, they would be micromanaged. He would have got rid of the pursuit policy, which I'll give Eric credit for what I believe are the things he did good. I believe our pursuit policy is very open. They chase cars. They're allowed to pit cars. They're allowed to crash the cars. When I say crash, it's called a pit. It's a calculated technique, but it looks like a crash sometimes. I agree with that part of what his administration is. And that was brought in, though, by the people that are gone. That was Alani Rich. That was some other people before him, Pat White, that's gone. Those guys had that mentality. I think if the guy won now with the people around him, I don't think it would be what it is, but it's
Mm.
already there. Keith would have got rid of all of it. And he said it. He said he was going to remove the pursuit policy and take all that away.
No
And I look,
tattoos, no
yeah,
hair
he
on
was,
your face.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, he
man.
would have got back to, yeah, that would have been terrible. And here's my analogy. Um, you know, Trump, Biden, Trump, we got to see the bad. I think if Milo comes in and wins, he'll have a much easier time fixing it the way it sits now than if Keith would have won, and then maybe another guy comes in because the place would have been so micromanaged, kind of like what we're seeing with ICE, like how bad Biden got rid of ICE and didn't let ICE do
Mhm,
their job, and now it's kind of going a completely wild other direction. Maybe
mhm.
somewhere in the middle is the right answer. I think Keith would have brought the reins so tight on the agency, you would have had a hard time undoing that. I think overall, the people at the sheriff's office and a lot of them are they doing the job the right way. They have a good mindset about the way they police, and overall, I think it's good there. The upper management's terrible. Some of the supervisors are terrible, but the core and the mindset of the agency, I think, is there with the right guidance and the right budget and the right leaders above them to maybe not lead like I'm in charge, listen to me, and lead like, hey, we're all here together as a team. Let's do it together. I think it can change. And I think Milo would win, bring in the right people, and have that better mindset than what's there right now.
So, Mike, I gotta ask you this question. I have, like, a little echo.
Uh,
So listen, I was thinking, is there a difference in the mindset of the police, they call them peace officers, and then the deputies in the way they do business?
Here, yes, and most places, it depends where you're at. Because you go back up north now, remember, the deputies in, like, Jersey and all that, they don't have any power. Philly, PA, they're all just
Yeah, it's terrible.
it's different. But yes, there's a different mentality and you'll notice it, unless you go to, like, bigger cities and some podunk areas where there's, like, a real rural sheriff's office and then a big city in the middle. But locally, no, yeah, you'll notice, like, Port St. Lucie Police Department is very micromanaged, very, um, strict, very I know they can't even, like, the officers can't make an arrest at the scene without a sergeant showing up and being all over them. And then you go to St. Lucie County, and even under Del Toro, which is a little more reined in than when Pearson was running it, they have more freedom, they do a little bit more. Same thing here, Fair Beach Police Department, very micromanaged, very strict. Fellsmere, very small, very micromanaged. Sebastian, very small, micromanaged. And then the deputies kind of have more free reign to do whatever they want and do, more aggressive policing, and that kinda goes this area, Martin County, same thing, very aggressive, very good agency. When you get a little further south, it changes a little bit, and some of those municipalities down south are very aggressive when you get down there in, like, Fort Lauderdale area and Miami-Dade and all that, but I would think if you're looking local, yeah, the deputies are a little bit more, un be able to think on their own and do their own thing without being so micromanaged as the cities are very there's all that drama with Curry and, all the lawsuits that are going on at the city police department with some of those guys suing them and how micromanaged they are. So it's a different world.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed, like, I talked to, I did a podcast with one of the guys that in New York that lives out in Nassau County. And I just wanted to know what's going on over there because of the Mandami and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
he was telling me, yeah, they don't have like sheriffs there, like the peace
No,
officers are the
no.
big body.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I've lived here for so long, I really don't think I feel comfortable with that because when I see Minneapolis and
Oh
all
boy.
these big cities that are run by peace officers, they have to answer to whoever hires them, the mayor or the county, whereas the sheriffs say, F you.
Yes, but look,
I'm a constitutional body, and that's not
but
constitutional, you know?
but that also you have to be careful because that power, which we're right back to what we're talking about, one of my podcasts it's still an open investigation on Eric Flowers for illegally spending tax dollars and using money when he shouldn't use it, and there's
For
really
personal gain.
nobody can police them. Grady Judd, untouchable, man. Fox News, he's the sheriff, and he says all these crazy things, shoot him, graveyard dead. Wayne Ivey, I can't stand Wayne Ivey, and he's all over the news, and he flaunts this agency. Nobody likes him. I can tell you
They've
right
been
now.
in for too
I
long.
know I know Brevard County, they're all leaving, we're hiring them, they're going everywhere else, they hate that guy, but they get on TV and they look like, "Oh, we're Wild West, we're great," but there's no oversight, look at, Greg Toney, who was appointed in, Broward County by Ron DeSantis, appointed a a Black Democrat sheriff, and he's a disaster. He's got, Coral Springs or one of those police departments is for the first time in 20 years, they're reforming a police department. They're pulling out of the county. He's got all kinds of bad history. So there's nobody to police. So you're right. Like you see Minneapolis and you see that like they have to listen to their mayor. So the New York's done. Mandami says it, police department's going to do it. Sheriff can
Mhm.
go frick yourself. The public elects me. But without morals and boundaries and good intentions, those sheriffs here in Florida can reach too far over. And I know a lot of the country looks, and I have a huge following on social media with my Copville page. They all love it. Florida sheriffs, Florida sheriffs, Florida sheriffs. They're
But
crazy
at
and
least we
shoot 'em,
can
shoot 'em, shoot
fire
'em.
them in the next election. Somebody can
You
run against
can,
them. But the
but Grady
mayor,
Judd's never going anywhere. Grady Judd's forever. Wayne Ivey looks like he's forever. But yes, Mandami that's dangerous. What's going to happen with him?
yeah, it really is. Like, I think their peace officers are gonna turn into Muslim officers.
I know that there's a huge exit and 5 or 6,000 and the lowest numbers ever in New York PD, and that's unfortunate because it's a dangerous city, but yeah, I mean, he can't go against you can't I don't know. The Constitution was founded, the country was founded on certain things, and, even with the Somalian stuff going on in Minneapolis and all that,
Minneapolis.
crazy, crazy, crazy to see it.
I know, it's crazy. We gotta get rid of these, Islamic crazy people. It's like
I
if
agree.
you there's 57 Muslim countries out there. If you wanna live that way, go there. They came to a Judeo-Christian country.
Yep.
So don't try to get rid
Look
of
what's
our
happening
Judeo-Christian
in
values.
France and England and all that. They're running around with knives in the street. I saw a grenade get thrown into a business last week in France. Like, it's crazy over there. I see all the scams. Like, I follow a lot of people on YouTube and uh, Instagram that post these, like, all these Muslim scammers at, like, these tourist spots in all these big cities that used to be beautiful are now being overrun. The police have no power, and we're gonna let that happen here. And, the ICE thing is
Mhm.
very controversial with the 2 shootings, and there's too far aggressive, and then there's under aggressive, and then somewhere in the middle is the normal everyday citizens, I say this, that wanna go to work, wanna go to the park, wanna be safe, don't wanna get involved in too much, just wanna live their lives, and we have to protect those people in the middle.
Yeah, I know when they were talking about the Preddy guy that was protesting, but
Mhm.
the guy was aggressive. He was there 11 days earlier, spitting at them, breaking their car. I was like, "Damn, he kicked that car pretty hard." Like, I don't think
Mhm.
I could kick a
We should have been
car
in jail
and
then.
break the
He
light,
should have been in
you
jail
know?
then. He
And
should have never
he
got out.
well, and he was carrying then too, because you saw in that if you saw watch that whole video of the 11-day earlier one, his firearm was showing them and they didn't take it off him then.
Yeah.
So the fact that they saw the aggression coming at that guy, the guy that was behind him, I think, is the one that fired first.
Mhm,
You
mhm.
but he saw that you could see that the firearm was no longer in his waistband. So
Yeah.
either he was thinking that guy is gonna shoot somebody because there were so many guys there. You didn't know where the
I I
firearm was.
I think that was a tactical error, and number too many hands in the jar is
Mhm,
not productive. That's why it comes back to training. 2 grown men, 2 police officers, 2 is a really good number, should be able to handle 1, and you don't need 9, 6, 5 dog pile. They're punching them, hitting them with pepper spray cans, and it got a little chaotic, and when things get chaotic, things happen. Do I think they murdered him? No. Do I think they set out to kill him that day? No. Do I think they're responsible somewhat and negligent in how it went down? I would say probably it didn't look good, but like it kind of goes back to like the textbook case we can all always argue and fight over would be George Floyd and Derek Chauvin. Do I think Derek Chauvin killed, murdered, like premeditated? No. Do I think he was
mhm.
negligent in being on his neck for 9 minutes or back? Yes. Was he trained that way? Yes. But as a human, when somebody's under you not moving for a while, should you check on him? Yes. And I get called liberal Mike for that take because I don't think he's a bad guy. Fuck him. He's dead. Like, I don't think that way about things. As crazy as I may seem and sound
No,
sometimes.
I agree with you. I
Incredibly
think he
level-headed.
should have checked on him.
Yeah, I think he was tried wrong. He should have never been tried for murder. He should have been tried for like negligent homicide or manslaughter, whatever it is up there, and had a different version of the trial. Not we're trying him for first degree murder and trying to put him in prison for the rest of his life. He should have never been charged that way. But he did have some negligent part in that death. And I think ICE in that situation also was very negligent in the amount of hands and bodies and people kicking, punching, doing all that. And it led to chaos, which chaos then leads to bad things happening, and unfortunately, something bad happened. I don't think that guy deserved to die that day, but yes, he was there agitating, he was a moron, he was kicking and spitting, he's an idiot. Should he die? I don't think he should have died, but bad things happen when all those things come together.
Mhm. Just like that good girl that
Yeah,
was
it's another bad thing, like, it was
driving her
stupid.
car
Yeah,
into the
yeah,
officer,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like,
I'm a little better with that one. That one I think is a little more easy to defend than the second one because you can't hit a guy with your car, and I don't think in some cases you see cops put themselves in front of the car and then shoot. He was dumb for walking around, he had his hand on it, he was we saw later on, he was videoing, and I don't know what the point of videoing the car is and walking around it and walking in front of it, but he
mhm.
didn't put himself in that position to be like, "Let me stand here and get run over on purpose." She decided to hit the gas. That one I think is a little easier for me to go, she kind of bought that one. The second one's a little more colluded in my mind,
Well,
but
she put her car in the way where it should have never been in the first
yeah, if she
place.
doesn't do it,
So
yeah,
she
yeah,
was obviously using it as as a tool in the
she was dumb.
street
Yep,
to
yep, yep,
prevent them from doing their job, which is
I
a
agree.
federal
And
crime.
and there are people, there's the Antifa and the left that's crazy, burning cities. There's the conservative right wing guys that are nuts, and everybody dies. And if you get in the way of the police, then there's like a little bit in, and I kind of fall in that middle where it's like I agree. I would never do that, and I don't agree with the police all the time. I think the police do a lot of dumb stuff. I'm a huge fan, huge fan of the First Amendment auditors. I love Sean Paul Reyes and the
Oh,
Long Island
yeah.
auditor. He's a friend of mine. I have him on my phone. I talk to him. We're good. I think he does great work, and people hate him. I don't hate him. Cops hate him. I think he's great. And I was actually in an auditor video at the tax collector's office with Carol Jean, where she wanted the guy arrested. She wanted them arrested. And I had to go there and go, can't arrest them. They're legally here. They can do whatever they want. But somewhere in the middle of that, I fall into you can't kill people though that don't that do show up in protest. You can't just kill them all.
Right.
So it's
No.
like you have to fall into that. There's a huge blame game. It goes back and forth. And, January 6th is another huge topic where it's kind of like who's right, who's wrong. And
So,
the
Mike,
country divided.
what do you think about Cash Patel and Kristi Noem's response to carrying a firearm when you're protesting or you're at a rally or you're, somewhere where there's large
You shouldn't
crowds
do
that
it. You
might
shouldn't do it.
disagree with
Yeah.
you?
You shouldn't bring a gun. That's dumb. But then you fall back. He's, the same people. Here's where it gets ugly is the right is gun, 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 right? We love our Second Amendment. The guy's exercising his Second Amendment. Then he gets into the agitation. So it's just a slippery slope. I'm not a fan of Kristi Noem's social media freaking stunts she pulls. The one day she's standing there with the gun, she doesn't even know how to hold it, and she's trying to be tough. It looks like her hat, and she's got extensions. She got fake hair. She kind of looks like the people are posting pictures of like the Kristi Noem fake hat with the hair attached to it already.
You don't like the Kristi poser?
No, that to me is like, I like Kash Patel. I think I dig him, but I don't like Kristi Noem's way of like trying to be cool and hip and holding a gun, and she doesn't know how to hold it. Like, come on, just if you want to be tough standing there. You don't have to hold a gun to be tough. But um, that just shows our division in our country and how some people are going to think one way, some people are going to think the other way. I think most of us are kind of in the middle somewhere and just want to be left alone and do, have fun and do our thing. And we're in a weird place in our country right now.
See, like in today's day and age, I pretty much carry everywhere I go.
Mhm.
I don't trust anything, and I'm always looking. I don't even after seeing some of the social media uh, posts on women just walking, minding their own business, and people running up and punching them and hurting them. I'm like, I can't even. I have to look and see who's walking around. Even here in Vero Beach, on my way to Publix, I had a MAGA hat on, and some lady right next to me had something derogatory to say, and my husband was walking a little bit in front of me, and I'm like, the balls of people,
Yeah.
like, you know, I don't like who you voted for, but I'm not going to go and be rude and vile towards you. I'm going to do it at the ballot box,
Yeah. Well,
or I'm
and
going to do
you're
it by wearing my MAGA hat, or
you
I'm going to.
you're a female and you're smaller, you're an easier target. People are gonna feel more comfortable maybe saying those things to you, but that's the reason why you do need to carry a gun. And I don't wear a MAGA hat everywhere. I have my own brand. I made it and I donated to Turning Point, but I have a Charlie Kirk Freedom sweatshirt I wear everywhere, and I made it custom, so it says Freedom like he was wearing. Then it has a microphone underneath it with his name on it. And people, I get the ugly looks, and I get the love your sweatshirt. I get the whatever. But I carry my gun, and I actually carry it in my hood. I wear a hoodie a lot, even when it's warm out. I like to carry it just my hands are on it. If you see me wearing a hoodie and my hands are in my pockets in the hoodie, my hands on my gun. My gun's in my pocket, and I'm walking around with it.
Yeah, I just don't feel safe anymore. I've
No,
got,
no. But I'll give you an
spray.
interesting. I want to give you an interesting scenario that kind of goes with the Alex Preddy shooting. Let's say I'm carrying my gun in Publix, and there's a fight, and I decide to interject, and it gets ugly. Maybe somebody has a bottle or a knife. I pull my gun out, and I look aggressive, and a cop comes around the corner.
Mm.
Who's the aggressor? Who's he going
He
to look at
can't
first?
tell. He can't
Who's he going
tell,
to
so
shoot?
you shouldn't.
Who do you think he's going to shoot first?
He's probably gonna shoot the person with the gun out.
Yes.
I would never
That's
use anything
where
like
it
that.
gets. That's where you have to worry. Is I carry my gun, and now let's say there's a guy that I remember the only time since I've not been a cop was in Publix. That's why I use that scenario. I walked in Publix and I was talking to another cop who was off duty. He was still working. He works in Martin County, and we're standing there talking. How you been? Good. And I got my gun. This guy walks in. He's older, probably 70, and he looks around, and I'm like, "Look at this guy!" And he's got a knife in his hand. He pulls a knife out, and he's like, "I'll stab you." And I'm like, "Bro, I'm getting a shooting match." Like I'd been retired like a month, and what was happening was it ended up diffusing, but he had dementia, and his wife came hustling in, and he got ahead of her. And I'm like, "Ma'am, you gotta you gotta make sure this doesn't happen. Like, I got a gun in my pocket, and this dude's telling me he's gonna shoot me." But you never know what's gonna happen. But my point being, what I was going with that is like cops have a tough job, and then you decide to exercise your Second Amendment, you get into some type of squabble, and you decide to protect yourself or try to protect somebody else. And a cop comes around the corner, and there's a split-second decision to go, who's the bad guy? 99% of the time, even if the good guy's with the gun, he's gonna look like the bad guy because what can hurt the cop first? The gun. So,
Yeah,
you have
but
to really
most
be careful about carrying and making sure you use it and choose to
I
use
would
it.
say most firearm carriers would not just use their weapon to defuse something.
No,
Now
you
they
shouldn't. You
they
shouldn't.
they would only use their weapon if it was in a case where someone's life was eminently
But
in danger.
if you don't know when that is or train, because we went to open carry now in Florida where you can just openly carry.
Yeah, but nobody likes doing that.
No, I don't do it either, but you have to make sure people know when, like the old, Kenny Rogers song, know when to hold them and know when to fold them. You gotta know when you can pull your gun out and when you can't, so
Yeah, well, see, the problem with that is they make training so freaking expensive. Even the ammo has gone up so high
agree.
now. Like I used to be able to buy, 1,000 rounds for 150, 60
Help
bucks,
you, right? Yeah.
and then when you buy your ammo and then you go and take lessons, everything is so expensive. So the less expensive it is, the more well-trained people can be, but
Yeah,
for
you
some
just
reason,
gotta be smart.
it's this commodity that nobody wants to, train people at a good price.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just
Well,
really
it's the world
expensive. I mean,
economy.
fortunately for me, my husband's 25-year vet, and I've also had some friends that are range officers that I've done their trainings with
Good.
them.
I'm
But,
glad. And it's always good to
you
carry,
know
but you have to make sure you're carrying and you know what you're doing and know how to operate it, because that's the worst thing is somebody
mhm.
with a gun who doesn't know how to use it.
It's very true, but they should make these trainings a little
Yeah.
more
I know that
affordable.
your buddy, Eric puts on free training out there for civilians at the
Yeah,
range.
he does, and
That's a good program. I like it. I'm not knocking it. That's a good program.
I think it's good for especially women because
Yep.
women don't and what they should I've never been to his training. I kinda wanna go just to see what it's like,
Mm.
but,
You might
I
not be
know
able
I
to
had
you might not be able to go now that you had me on.
oh, stop. But listen, I had after this was like, I wanna say it was 2000 maybe it was 2000, let's see. It was probably around 2011, 2012. No, it was around 2013. I gotta say 2013. And I went to my girlfriend's house for dinner, and when I came home, someone was trying to break in my house. I
Oh,
was
God.
at the Fountainhead Villas at the time. Do you know where those are at? They're right
In your
off of
board?
Indian
Yeah.
Boulevard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I rented a place there, and when I walked in the house, luckily my daughter wasn't with me, I heard something in the bathroom, and I was like, "What the hell was that?" So somebody was trying to get into my bathroom window.
Oh, boy.
So my range officer told me, "Find a place, put your back to the wall, your safe place, and hold your gun and tell them you have a firearm and you will shoot if because you feel your life is in danger." And then I called 911.
Mhm.
But what I'm getting to is with all the training that we did, my instructor never told me the adrenaline rush that
Oh,
kicks
yeah.
in.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
this serious adrenaline rush that
we can
kicks
go
in.
down a whole hole, yes, and civilians, well, you don't know that, and that's why it is important to be in those positions and know that, because and when you go train and even cops, going to a gun range, you're right, it's all there. You go to the gun range, nobody's pointing a gun at you, nobody's trying to kill you, just shooting at a little paper target, it's all fun and games. You don't never know what your body and mind are gonna do when you actually get in that scenario. Now, it's think about I've been you should be terrified when you have a gun out. You should be ready
Mhm.
to perform, but you should be
Yeah.
terrified. Not as a grown man, I'm 5'11", 205 pounds, I work out, I'm in shape, I know how to operate a gun. Every time I have to put a gun in my hand, it's serious, it's nerve-wracking, and I've had a couple times I'm retired, my wife worked night shift for a long time, I'm laying in bed at 1 AM, and I hear something, and there I am walking through the house with my gun out, and it's nerve-wracking. It's very nerve-wracking.
Well,
You're right, I'm
because
glad
you
you brought
know if
that up.
you
Glad you
yeah,
brought that up. People don't understand how terrifying it is when
no,
you
it's
know
a
somebody's breaking
huge
in.
adrenaline rush, and
Yeah,
you know that if you have it out, you might have to take
yeah,
someone's life. You know that.
yep,
And that I think that was part of that adrenaline rush, but I kept thinking of what my range officer kept
good. That's
telling
great.
me in
That's
my
great.
head.
Yep,
But
great.
and then I was on the phone at the same time, but I'll never forget that moment because
Scary.
I
Yep.
called him back and I was like, "You never told me about the adrenaline rush. You
And that's
never
something
prepared me for that."
yeah, and that's why inducing stress is very important in law enforcement for those scenarios because 'cause I've come very close. I didn't have to shoot anybody, thank God, I'm glad I didn't, but I came very, very, very close, a couple times 2 I can think of very close, where a guy had a machete once and tried to hit me with it, and another time a guy had a gun in his waist and I could see it, and, you cannot recreate that under any circumstances, how nerve-wracking it is to think, "I'm getting ready to kill somebody, or I'm getting ready to shoot somebody," and it not only is it for the dangers for a cop or a civilian, then it's like, what happens afterwards? Are they gonna think
Mhm.
it's okay? Are they gonna back me? I have a really close friend that I've developed since I started podcasting. His name is, Salvatore Aldradi, and he's a cop up in New Jersey, and he killed somebody, and 2 years after he killed the guy justifiably, a Democrat, came in, Mike Platkin, piece of garbage, came into New Jersey as Attorney General and indicted him for murder, and he's still pending. He's still pending for a shooting that happened years ago. So, you could do everything right, and like he did, it's a terrible case for him, and you could end up getting indicted or in trouble or somebody questions your actions, and you see it on the news, the family, "He was a great kid, he played football, he did this," and next thing you know, you're think about it. Think about it. You kill that
Mhm.
guy, and you are nationally known immediately. That moment, you are going to be known as, you know, a Binford that's had to shoot a guy in her house, and he was a nice kid, and you made a mistake, and you shot him in the face, and you should have shot him in the leg, or all those things, and you're just protecting yourself in your house, and you're now, all that adrenaline doesn't go away that moment. It's gonna be in your life the rest of your life. PTSD, mental health.
Right,
You killed
because it's
somebody.
you
Yeah, you
unsee it,
killed somebody. Yeah,
can't
you saw
unsee
you
it,
you
you
yeah,
have to
don't
be
know.
prepared and like, "Oh my god, that's gonna happen."
And
So
nobody thinks about it at the range. That's things nobody
mhm.
crosses their mind. I'm glad you had that experience. I'm sorry that happened and you were terrified, but I'm sure it's gonna make you more prepared if that situation ever arises again.
Yeah, because I was like, "Oh, I can't believe you didn't tell me that. That's
Yeah,
something you should talk about."
yeah,
Like,
for
you
sure.
I mean, because they'd have you do all the scenarios and the runs, and we did, the running behind things, how to go around
Yep,
corners and
yep.
on the bottom, get on the ground, and, how to shoot through the little holes in the things. But the whole adrenaline rush thing was, like, totally did not realize that
Yeah, yeah.
how
Your
intense
own
that can
safety, and then you're going to kill
And
somebody, like, you
and
kill
you have to stay level-headed, you have
Yep,
to
mhm.
think, I had 911 on the phone, and I'm still talking, and I'm like, I'm shaking a little bit, like
Now think of the cops that are coming. You're going
mhm,
through that, and we're going 100 miles an hour with lights on going,
to my house.
we don't know what we're getting ready to walk into. We
Yep,
don't know
that
what's
was
gonna happen.
and it was good that I had 911 because she was
Mhm,
like, "Someone's at the door." I was like,
mhm.
"Someone's at the door," and she's like, "It's our officers, it's our officers, you can open the door." But
Yep.
it was a very,
Wow, great.
eye-opening
Good.
yeah, it was never I will
Like
never
I said,
forget
I'm
that.
glad that happened and it wasn't a catastrophic incident, and now going forward, and you talking about that and, something with your platform, that should be something that you maybe encourage women, especially to, "Hey, if you're gonna get a gun, make sure you prepare," and then, to talk about that scenario is very important.
Yeah, because you just don't you can't recreate that, and
Nope,
it's
nope.
and you have to keep a level head. You have to think about all of your training and
Mhm.
listen. Put your instructor in your head to keep
Yep.
yourself calm because my hand was shaking, and
Yeah.
I remember thinking, "Oh my god, if they came in, would I even hit him?"
Yep.
because you're shaking. You're like the adrenaline is just going through
That's why
you.
training is so important, and it's we undertrain. Cops undertrain, and people think, "Oh, you train so much." No, you don't, because where I learned it the most was when I got into SWAT and I started doing SWAT competitions, and you're jumping walls, running, and putting a gas mask on and doing all these tasks, and then you have to shoot, and that's not a life threatening situation, but it's a high stress situation. Your skills deteriorate immensely. I think a hit rate in an officer involved shooting is in the 30s, like
Mm.
30% of the rounds hit the target. Well, they're going all over. There's houses, there's people, there's this, there's that. Like, they're going everywhere. So imagine, like, 30% of officer involved, rounds are going on target, and that's a good rate. Like, it's you can't recreate those scenarios. And then, what if the cop just got off the phone with his wife and they're in a domestic argument? What if his kids are acting up? What if his stomach hurts? What if he's got a headache? You, like, factor all that other stuff in, and then you have to go. It's a lot. It's a lot of things going on.
Wow. So, do you think you would ever run for sheriff?
I have people say this a lot, and obviously there's the Facebook. You got to be careful, because I'll give you the best example was when Daryl Rivers ran for
You
sheriff.
would never say yes or no on you would never really give an answer on,
I I think I joke about it. People have come to me and I've said I'd say, "I'm gonna run, I'm gonna run." The amount of scrutiny and what you have to put yourself through, and I told you I was investigated. People would bring all that garbage up and try to throw mud at me. I don't know. I mean, you think I don't know that I want, at this point in my life, to go back into that. I like what I do now. I really do. I like being able to say what I wanna say, having no filter, but
Mm.
I would want honestly, I would want somebody like me, and I think Milo is as close as you're gonna get. I would want somebody like me to be sheriff.
So is Milo living in South now, or is he living still up here?
Lives in Bureau, lives in New York County. Keith's
Okay.
gone Keith's gone. Keith's probably, not he
He's
can't.
in Brevard now.
He moved, he took a, city manager job, I think, in Titusville
Mm.
or somewhere up there. I can't remember exactly where it was, but so he's out. He doesn't live in the county. I can't foresee him giving up that really nice job and moving back to run. So I think, barring a wild card, um, you probably may have that Flowers, hopefully have that Flowers Milo one-on-one, and I think Eric's in trouble if it's a one-on-one.
Yeah, and then you'll have the Cooney girl as the
I
write-in
hope she
again.
stays out, because I had a moment the other day. I called my buddy the other day and I thought of this. If Milo decides to run, and you're hearing this first out of my mouth, maybe it's a tactical disaster for me saying it out loud, but I will go to Gifford if she runs and explain. I'll stand on the corner if I have to, and explain to everybody up there in the Democratic area. I know you hate Donald Trump, most likely. You're not a Republican. You don't believe in those values. I get it. But if we want to win, the supervisor elections is walking distance from the middle of Gifford. You got to walk over there. You got to drive over there. You got to get on your bike, get over there, and register as a Republican just this time to make sure you can vote. And I think you have to focus. Somebody has to do that, and I'll volunteer for it, because I have such a great relationship up there. You have to
Hey,
get.
I'll do it with you because when I was running for county commission, I ran into a lot of people in the Gifford area that don't vote. They're not registered to vote
Mhm, mhm.
at all.
Yeah.
I'm
Or they
like,
have to switch, and
you
again,
guys are complaining about how policies are affecting you and you're not voting.
and here I'm gonna give you a real, and I'm gonna say it, I don't care. I've thought about saying this out loud, but I'm gonna say it. One of Eric Flowers' top administrators in the jail is Kent Campbell. When Kent Campbell ran for sheriff, I supported him the first time, way back. You're going before when Darrell Lord won the first time. It was Kent Campbell, Ed Glazier, Bill McMullen, and Darrell Lord ran. They called Kent the White Devil in Gifford. There were signs that said, "Don't vote for the White Devil." They hated him because he
Wow.
worked up there and they didn't like him. People just voted for Eric Flowers twice, and one of his top administrators is Kent Campbell. So if you don't like Kent Campbell, you shouldn't have been voting for Eric Flowers. And I don't know that people know that, because he's just an administrator. He's the deputy chief of the jail. And this isn't my opinion of Kent. I'm not saying anything about him. I'm just saying what I know to be true based on what I saw. And I supported Kent the first time, way back.
I don't
So
remember him.
yeah, he was a road patrol lieutenant. He was my sergeant. He was my lieutenant. He was my drug sergeant for a while. He was lieutenant on the road for me. He was a captain. But he's now the deputy chief of the jail. He retired, came back, deputy chief, and he's the guy I think's running the place. He's the only real hammer, anybody with that real law enforcement experience. Um, but again, if you don't like him and you didn't like him 20 years ago, you shouldn't be voting for Eric because Eric has him in charge as like the second or third in charge. But I think that if it's one on one without um, Cooney, it's a done deal. And I would think Eric would make sure, and I'm not saying I know this to be true, but I would think Eric would make sure she runs or somebody. There was that whole
You
Ken
think
Mascara
so, huh?
scandal. Well, think about there was that scandal in St. Lucie with Ken Mascara where he actually got found guilty by FDLE of like having somebody run. I would think
Wow.
he would want her to run. Um, I would like to run just to be in the debates. That's why I would, and I wouldn't wanna hurt Milo by doing it, but
Well, you could do that as a write-in.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, I know, and I would like to well, I think I could get enough signatures to get on the ballot. You know, Eric Flowers didn't get enough signatures to get on the ballot this last election, he had to pay for it. Um, but I would like to be in the debates for sure. I would like to have to face Eric Flowers one-on-one and have him talk talk to me because he doesn't want to, and he doesn't wanna hear the truth about a lot of things, but I would think if she runs, you gotta have somebody in that Democratic area to make sure that they go understand they have to go register Republican to vote. You're a
Yeah,
Democrat in the county, unfortunately, it means nothing, and it's you go up to Massachusetts, it's the opposite. There's no Republicans up there. It's either independent or Democrat. You can't be a Republican in, like, Massachusetts. So down
that's
here, you
sad.
really can't be a Democrat. You can't be a Democrat. You have to be
Oh,
a
yeah, but
Republican to vote. It's unfortunate, but you have to.
you do, you have
Problem is
to.
well, the problem, though here's the problem. Unfortunately, it falls in line with the sheriff election is in line with the presidential election.
Mhm.
Democrats wanna stay Democratic, vote against Republican. That's where they really can't stand. Local politics, it really
Well,
doesn't
but
matter.
in the primaries, it doesn't matter because in the primaries, you're just trying to get that person to
I
be
know,
in the
but they don't
general
you're not
election.
gonna have too much you're gonna have too many problems explaining that to people that, "I'm a Democrat, I don't want Trump to win," or, "I don't want JD Vance to win," probably gonna be the next, candidate.
It's
So
like,
they're
but
gonna
you want that grassroots guy to win there.
yep, we're
He's
gonna have to
not
do
gonna get
something.
ahead
And
because
and
grassroots will not make it.
I couldn't I couldn't do that last election because I still worked there, and I got shit canned anyway because of it, even though I was a silent more a little bit more. This time, I'm all in. If Milo runs this time, I'll do everything in the world to make sure he wins.
You're gonna campaign, you're gonna set up a booth right
All
there
of it, all of it, all of it.
and
I mean,
interview all of his
I wore the shirt, I
constituents.
wore the hat, everybody knew who I was, voting for, it wasn't a secret, but I didn't get crazy and I didn't go public. I made some jabs and I made some posts on Facebook. Everybody knew who I was supporting, but this time there'll be like I said, I'll put my hat on right now, but it's in Orlando, I bring it with me in Orlando, but I will 1000% help Milo win.
You hear that, Milo?
Yeah, he knows if he runs, he knows. Like I said, he called me we played phone tag. He's at the FBI Academy right now up in, up north in, very prestigious academy for, administrators, so he's attending the FBI Academy, and, we've
So
been playing
he's learning how to be administrator, like
yeah, it's an advanced academy. They most high and you have to be nominated and accepted. It's a pretty prestigious thing to go. His soon to be I don't know if you guys all know the politics, but the one being groomed to replace Eric Flowers is Ross Partee. And,
mm.
ironically, Ross is up there as well, so that
Oh,
I'm sure they're not hanging out because they're totally opposites because, obviously, Ross is a huge fan of Eric's and Milo got screwed by
so
these
he'll
guys.
be taking notes on, Milo and feeding it back to,
Yeah, but,
ours.
that's who they're grooming. When Ross gets back, Kyle King retires and, Ross is the deputy chief, and then
Mm.
he'll be groomed to be the next sheriff. I don't know that Eric Flowers is ever gonna be financially stable enough not to be sheriff, though, with all his personal financial issues. Not only budget issues, but his personal finances are bad.
Wow. Well, Mike, it's been a real joy.
Yeah, it's been fun.
I really enjoyed having you on,
I
and,
appreciate it.
gotta do this again. I know you're so
Yeah,
busy
yeah.
now, you're
I
always
would love to come to Filthy's, but unfortunately, my Thursdays, I would love to hang out with you guys at Filthy's for those podcasts, and hopefully, maybe we can switch it days where I can be there and when we start doing some of the things we talked about on John's show that night, but I do a double in Orlando. I have a day show and a night show, so I'm always stuck overnight there in Orlando.
yeah, and it's great. What a great idea John had for the Conspiracy Club 101 to be at Filthy's.
I
It's
love
great
Nick
that we
too.
got
Nick,
that set
the
up.
owner. Nick Novak is great. I love him.
We are there's no running out of conspiracies these days. We've got the Guthrie daughter, we've got all kinds of stuff
And you
going
can
on
always,
here.
you always got Old Faithful. You got the moon landing. You got 9/11. You got
Even Vero
Lamp
Beach has
Day.
its own conspiracies going
Yeah,
on here.
yeah. It's always big
So
with it. It's a great
you
group of guys you hang out with, and I'm glad,
I
I'm
love
glad you know
these
you guys.
guys. They're awesome,
Yep.
great. I'm so glad we're partners with IRC Media, and I'm looking forward to the IRC Media growing. I mean, no kidding. I have a vision of a IRC Media studio.
Yeah, I went on, and John and I haven't really talked much since I went on. I'm just so busy. I bought into that company, Antihero Broadcast. I own half the company, and it's 5 days a week now, 11 to 1 every day during the day, Thursday nights. But I wanna help the locals, and I think I do my live Wednesday show, Hot Topic with Dominic Izzo, but that's more of a broad. I wanna start doing a live local show myself, like you guys
Mhm.
do. So I'm trying to find a good time slot that works to not step on anybody else's toes and start doing local Vero news interaction myself. So I'm headed that way.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of people doing that now. That guy from Newsmax, Lynch, has a station as well. I didn't
Mhm.
even know he existed till the
Kenneth Michael Lynch,
Michael Lynch, till
I
they
hate him.
had that
I hate him.
meeting.
I hate him. I hate him.
I was like, "He's a Newsmax guy? Why did he give out that false information? Didn't he do his homework?"
He pissed me off. He pissed me off twice, and I'll tell you why, and then we can end. He used when Charlie Kirk got murdered, he used a Charlie Kirk murder reel to push Eric's butt for him and kind of correlated the 2 events, and then
Oh,
really, really pissed me off when, God rest her soul, Terry Sweeting, was murdered on the beach, Deputy Sweeting. He used hers as well, and he made another reel, and I think that's just using somebody's dead name in vain to push a budget is so tacky and so shitty,
mm,
and I'll never forgive him for those 2. Charlie Kirk, I don't know him, it sucked. It's really shitty what happened, but I worked with Terry for my whole career, and I worked with her close, and we were friends, and to use her name and then push the budget like, "Oh, we need this wouldn't have happened if we had more money." I don't dig that. It really rubbed me the wrong way.
yeah, I can hear that. That was really sad case, and I almost, when I heard her story, I was like, "Man, I feel like I didn't get a chance to meet this amazing person."
I keep her, right here. She's with me at all times when I podcast. This is her from her funeral, the prayer from her viewing, and then I made a sticker that said Tammy. I always called her Tammy. We had jokes, and the inside joke was if you had a nickname that wasn't your real name, you were in the clique, and she was in the clique, and she was a good friend.
Wow. Well, thank you for coming on tonight. We're gonna
So,
close it out, and, we'll stay in touch.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining Binford Chronicles. We ran a little bit over, but I had such a good time talking with Mike. It was a pleasure to talk with him. Now, listen, come out this Thursday. I'm not podcasting on Thursday. Come out to the Conspiracy Club 101. We've got new merch. Be the first to wear it, be the first to buy it. Bring 20 bucks, and we'll see you there. Remember to visit IRC Media to see our other guest podcasters that we share on our studio platform, and that's like Shattering the Narrative and Gun Stuff. So join us every Friday as well on the Board Report. I host that with John Karapi, and that's at 7 p.m. every Friday. Again, thank you for joining us, folks. We'll see you next Thursday, not this Thursday, the following Thursday. Good night.
We're going to stop the whole world for 2 minutes. Twice. 2 different moments, 2 historical moments. First, we will gather everyone in Christian ministry from the pastors to the janitors in every church and ministry from the 194 nations to pray for America all at the same moment in time for the first time ever on July 3rd on the eve of America's 250th birthday. To then kick off the global sign-up of 2 billion believers led through the unique app technology for one singular global moment of awakening on November 1st, 2026, All Saints Day, a Sunday, 2 days before America's elections. The global Christian ministry leaders and servants leading the world to a seminal moment in American history. The moment the entire world stops to pay America back by praying for America for 2 minutes.